So I bet you read the title and are now assuming that this video is going to be summed up in one word: cope. And yeah, actually, you're right, but hear me out. I do believe that maybe she shouldn't have died. Please don't take this video too seriously. Part of the reason why so many people got interested in the anime was because of Ai's sudden death. Sudden being the key word because it felt like it wasn't originally supposed to happen. The plot up until then was pretty solid. Doctor and patient both like an idol. They both meet their untimely end, and now they are reincarnated as the babies of said idol. Through this, they will begin to learn more about the behind the scenes of the entertainment industry, and how it's not all sunshine and rainbows. That's a pretty solid plot as is. So, did my girl Ai really need to die? While you can argue that Ai's death via jealous stalker brings up another negative about the industry, I feel like they could have used Ai's character to show more ways to bring up this point. For example, now that Ai was gaining lots of popularity, there could have been a situation where people would begin to dig up any past tweets she made, and if any of them remotely showed a hint of potential criticism, then Twitter being Twitter, you know what would happen. The haters will hate, and it will show another aspect in which fans are unreasonably horrible towards anyone with a fan base. Staying on topic with the bad fan base, we have an obsessive stalker that instead of physically being a threat, like this guy, they are more so digitally one. That's right, a situation where a fan hacks Ai's phone, threatens to leak anything that could possibly be career ending, and the only way to prevent it from happening is by going on a date with them. So naturally, the whole gang starts to panic and begins thinking about what to do. Ultimately, Ai rejects because if she's seen in public with the guy, even if they are a fan, it would still potentially ruin her career. Thankfully, the fan understands and decides to make it a virtual date. With no other choice, they agree. And so, using one of the computers that Strawberry Productions have, they wait for when the stalker sends a request to FaceTime them. Everyone's more on the worried side, while Ruby and Aqua are angry as hell looking in the background. They get the FaceTime request and they accept the call, and it turns out it's a young kid. Everyone's shocked, but the kid wastes no time and starts to talk about how big of a fan they are. And long story short, it gets more wholesome, but they do scold the kid for pulling something like this, to which they apologize but mention that they just really wanted to get to see Ai. While this fan wasn't nearly as bad as this guy, it does still bring into light the possibility of famous people getting their private life leaked via hackers. I think part of what makes a character's death a lot more impactful is when it's done once they finished what they wanted to accomplish. Otherwise, the death won't be that satisfying, as there were a lot more that character could have done. In Ai's case, I think it would have been nice to see her come to love her fans as well. Anyways, yeah, I think that if they wanted to kill her regardless, it could have been done once she came to love her fans, and once it was shown what role/dynamic she would have with the kids as they grew up. Will she be too busy doing her own thing and thus not being that involved in the kid's life? Or would she prioritize being there for Aqua and Ruby's journey, which can lead to problems on her end? I think it would have been nice to see what role she would have played in their lives, especially with Ruby's. That being said, at the end of the day, the main characters are Aqua and Ruby, so wouldn't Ai take away too much from the actual lead, like a certain drama shown in the anime? Well, not necessarily. The following are going to be made up plots that I thought of, and I think it would make it so that Aqua and Ruby don't get the spotlight taken away from them. We're going to be starting with Aqua. Part of what makes Aqua's journey so interesting is because it takes a dark turn. His journey to get revenge on the dad is a pretty big deal in the overall concept of the story. So how can we fix that while keeping Ai from dying in the process? Well, here are some ideas. But do keep in mind that we will continue on with the assumption that the whole stalker coming to the apartment bit never happened, while keeping the stalker relevant to the plot. We're also going to assume that Aqua still follows the path to being an actor. For starters, Ai and the kids will be preparing for the dome concert just as they originally did. We then find out that Ai made it to the dome as early as possible, but fans have already gathered at the place. She tries entering through another way, but a fan spots her, and now a crowd is starting to form. In that crowd is the stalker. And now, one of the two things happen. Either the stalker successfully stabs Ai, but in a non-lethal area, or he attempts to attack her with a knife, but is stopped by either security or another close-by fan. Either one would lead to the concert being cancelled, and everyone will begin to talk about the incident. Aqua connects the stalker to the same guy who killed him, and figures out it's the work of the dad as he did in the anime. This way, we keep the same plot going with Aqua's revenge, but still having Ai up and around. But everything that has happened in the anime stays the same. The path Aqua will take is more centered around the dark path he's taken, and thus more dark shit is going to happen to him. Aqua will become more cold towards others, leading to him not having many friends, until one day he meets someone that reminds him of a loved one, whether it's someone from his past life that we don't know about yet, or someone in his current life. It doesn't really matter, but it's someone who he's close to. So naturally, after a while, they become his one and only friend. Things start to look up for my boy, and there's more happy slice of life filler, until one day the friend starts to be more distant. It turns out that the friend has been the center of a bad controversy going on, and they are now getting a lot of hate. So much so that they become depressed, and then one day they decide to game over themselves. Either one of the two things happen. They are either successful and now Aqua is really going to start going through it, or Aqua is somehow able to save them and talk them out of it, and afterwards he promises to himself that he would protect this said friend. This would also bring into attention the whole celebrities that game over themselves due to trash fan behavior or just the stress that they deal with. It could also be the beginning of Aqua starting to soften up, or at least trying to talk to more people, even if it's just a little bit. Now then, I'm obviously not going to think up of a whole storyline for the sake of time, so I'm going to throw out how I think Aqua's journey would be at its peak / how it will end. So since now the only person who knows Ai has kids is the father himself, how can we be introduced to him? Well, how about as Aqua becomes more and more well known, he gets plenty of roles as an actor. One day he gets a role that comes with a pretty big script. Aqua decides to read it, and after a couple sentences, he's shocked to realize that this script is talking about Ai's life, and naturally talking about the two kids she has. There could have only been one person who could have made this, and so this would set the scene for the beginning of the end. Now, why would this take place in the first place? Well, as Aqua gets more popular, he made more connections and not only found out the name of his dad, but is also able to push him into a corner. How? Well, maybe at some point Aqua gets asked in an interview who he thinks is a better actor than him, or who's his favorite celebrity, which Aqua answers his father's name. In a way, he's saying that he knows who he is while issuing a sort of challenge, which leads to what I mentioned earlier. Anyways, continuing on with the plot. It wasn't only Aqua who received the scripts though. Anyone who even remotely knew him were included as characters in the story, and the main cast consists of him and his family. Anyways, let's fast forward to the day of the play. Up until now, it hasn't been revealed that the story is about Ai to the public. The play covers most of the key points of what has been going on so far. It's the last scenes at the end that mainly focus on Aqua and his father, and instead of it being scripted, all it says is for them to improvise. With everyone still uneasy, the play begins. Up until the play has started, Aqua had been hyping himself up for this very moment, and when it's his time to meet face to face with his father, he is ready for action. The next scenes would be tense as both the dad admits his plans to kill Ai, and Aqua declaring that he's waited for his very moment to take revenge. Next thing you know, they start fighting, but it's not fake. The two of them are fighting with the intent to murder one another. This is also a good time to throw in that it would be a cool detail to show the reaction of the audience, and during the slice of life scenes, they appear to be slightly uninterested, And then when we get more to the sad or action-packed scenes, the audience reaction to the story is more intrigued. And this can be used to make a connection with how the actual people might have been reacting to the anime. It's a pretty cool detail in my opinion. Anyway, it had been a close fight, but the father has the upper hand, beating Aqua into the floor. He then goes on to get a sword or a knife, maybe a knife, to stab Aqua violently as everyone is watching. But before he's able to, one of the two things happen. One, Aqua is able to knock him off balance enough to disarm him, thus allowing him to now have the upper hand. The second thing that could happen would be mentioned later, but they both end with the same result. Now, determining what you would consider a good or bad ending, I will now list what would happen next. Aqua either kills his father in front of everyone, but of course it will end with him getting arrested, or he exposes himself along with Ruby to be Ai's kids, and then exposing the father for the horrible things he's done. And one way or another, everyone begins to side with him, and the dad is arrested for his crimes, and the twins become extremely famous, or at least the main topic of many news stations for a good while. Though Aqua feels bad for exposing I would playfully mention that she's already planning to retire anyways, since she should be around the age of 30 by the time we have reached to this point. And so, using the attention, they further improve their careers. Aqua gets more and more roles, and he gets a lot more appearances in shows, while Ruby gets more support as an idol, since technically she's not the one with the kids, so there shouldn't be anything to hate on her for. And yeah, everyone lives happily ever after. So that's how Aqua's side of the story would go. Now let's talk about Ruby, since she's the other main character. Ruby struggles being an idol, but Mama Ai helps her through it, which will maybe lead to more wholesome scenes like this. She decides to form her own idol group, but struggles finding members and getting any attention, to which Saito or Ai suggests her to do YouTube or any type of social media stuff to put her and her future group out there. Of course, she gets into Strawberry Productions and it's just going to be a different idol branch from Ai's. She looks for members and gathers a group of girls rather quickly. However, when they decide to test her skills, all of the girls are pretty bad, and maybe they reveal that most of them are just not interested in the hard work that it takes to be an idol. Ruby will come off as desperate to get the group up and going, but for not the right reasons. Instead of doing it for them, she's doing this so that they can get popular extremely fast, so that they can maybe have a chance to work with Ai and her group. I don't know much about idol stuff like this, but I'd imagine that people would like to see the two groups doing something together once Ruby's group shows promise. However, there needs to be some sort of conflict in her journey, and if we want her to be as interesting as Aqua's, then her story will maybe have to take some form of the same route Aqua's journey is, so we have to add more tragedy. If they want to make her story sad, then include her finding out what happened to the doctor. One way to do this is by having her either want to go back to where she previously died in hope of looking for the doctor, or if her group has some business to do over there, and once she's there, she then starts wanting to find him, only to accidentally run into his corpse. Once she finds the corpse of the doctor, she awakens the same eyes as Aqua and is now determined to find out who did this. And in order to get more information, she becomes more manipulative and lies to get what she wants. Ai notices the change in Ruby's behavior and tries to help her out, but Ruby has become more distant towards not only her mom, but to everyone else. Ruby continues trying to find out who killed the doctor, but since she doesn't come off as the smartest person, let's assume that she's getting nowhere with her investigation. Now, once again, I'm not going to make up a whole plot from beginning to end for the sake of time, so let's just flash forward to the end of the story. So remember how I mentioned that when Aqua was on the floor and the dad was getting ready to stab him, how there were two things that could happen? Well, I talked about Aqua knocking him out of balance enough to gain the upper hand, but the second thing that could happen was for Ruby to shove the dad, and thus Aqua is able to get the knife and now has the advantage. Aqua is mad, telling her that she should have stayed out of it and that all he ever wanted to do was to protect those close to him. And more specifically, he wanted to protect Ruby because she reminds him of someone that he used to know. She then gets flashbacks of how Aqua has acted towards her and how he reminds her of the doctor, and puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that he's the doctor. That or it improves their family bond more, depending if it's ever planned to make the twins find out about each other. Anyways, now we are given the same 2 decisions, whether they should kill the dad or let him get arrested. And assuming that they decide to let him go, everyone lives happily ever after, just like in Aqua's ending. Or do they? Depending if they want to extend the story, they can make it so that the dad gets a lesser sentence or is somehow able to completely avoid charges. But anyways, that has a lot more to do with the law stuff, and I'm not the most informed with laws, so let's just stick with the happy ending. Notice how most of the video focuses on Ruby and Aqua more than I. Well, that's because they are the main characters, and there's a lot more ways to make them outshine I. If it was the opposite, then I could see the issue. But the most I see her doing is supporting both Aqua and Ruby in their own journey while her working on her own. For Aqua, she can become someone that makes them want to open up to others. And for Ruby, she can be someone who supports her on her journey to be an idol, since she herself is one. And yeah, that's pretty much it, because Aqua would be too focused trying to find his dad, while Ruby at some point becomes more distant with her. We could also make the story very dark, even without having I be killed. So yeah, that's why I think I's departure wasn't really necessary. Again, these are my opinions, and since I actually liked I a lot, it was a shame for her to die so early. Once again, you can summarize this whole video with the word cope. And hey, if you made it this far, then for starters, thank you for sticking through the end. And second, comment cope if you made it this far. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then hit that like button, as it's always appreciated. And if you find yourselves coming back often, then consider subscribing to the channel. I'm not sure if I plan to make more videos like this, as I do more gaming videos, but I really enjoyed Oshinoko and really wanted to talk about it. Anyways, that'll be it from me. Peace.